Hello, welcome to Racecraft once again. The Scorpion here is getting close to being finished. All the motor parts are done. It starts, it runs, transmission shifts, all that sort of thing. So it's well along the way. The extractors are done, which are modified eBay extractors, so they're actually really quite cheap. But it's a good way of making a set of extractors without having to spend a whole lot of money. Now, although the car's this close to being done and it's already got a big brake conversion on it and so forth, the customer has decided he wants to go 5-stud because he wants to run big wheels and have the wheels custom made. That's no problem. It just means I'll take off the conversion that's on it now and do a big brake conversion. And if you're wondering about this, all you old guys out there who have spent a lifetime working with your hands will know all about carpal tunnel. So this puts me out of action for a few weeks, which is a bit of a shame. All right, I'll show you what I'm going to do with the brakes. So this has already got a big brake conversion. That's the VS Commodore 2-spot caliper and the big 300mm Commodore rotor. But it's the original Sigma Scorpion 4-stud hub. Now, we've got to have to go 5-stud, which means a different hub. And the hub that I will use is actually HQ Holden, because Sigmas and Scorpions use the same bearings as HQ Holden. So the HQ rotor is almost a straight fit onto this stub axle. But because he's going to 17-inch wheels, it leaves us a bit more room for a decent sized rotor. So the plan is to put these rotors on. So I'll make up the hubs, mount the rotor onto it, and then hopefully, I don't know whether we'll still use the Commodore rotors or 4-spotters. I'll show you the 4-spotters in a sec. Right, these are the calipers that I'm hoping to use. These are Hilux, also used on some Toyota Land Cruisers. The only downside would be that they're cast iron, but most engineers love the big 4-spot calipers. Nothing wrong with these either. All right, I'll show you what I'm doing with the hubs in a sec, and we'll get on with it. This is your normal Scorpion rear axle. This is different to a Sigma, because Sigmas run Borg-Warners, Scorpions run the Japanese diff. But that's how they look. This is the conversion already done to the 5-stud pattern. I've re-drilled the axle, just weld up the holes, re-drilled the axle, and re-drilled the rotor. So we now have 5-stud on the rear. So I've got my HQ rotor here on the lathe, and these are brand new rotors. Seems a bit of a shame to cut the rotor part, or the friction area, off the hub, but all I want off this is the actual hub itself. So I'm going to part that off now, then put just the hub into the lathe, clean it all up, and then we're going to mount those big rotors onto the back of this hub and re-drill it in between these bolt holes to Ford pattern. So the pattern will be the same front and rear on the car. Okay, so that part's a throwaway. This is the bit that we're interested in. So now we've got ourselves a hub. So what I'm going to do is clean this up on the back here so it's nice and smooth, and then mount that big rotor onto it. So I'll get this all cleaned up, and then I'll show you the next step. I've machined the rotors and I've machined the hubs. I've got it set up here now in the milling machine, and I'm doing the stud pattern. I've got the digital readout here set up so I can program into their exactly correct Ford pattern, 4 on 114.3 or 4.5. So I'll drill all of these holes, then I'll go through with my trusty reamer and ream the holes to size. It's important to ream the holes to exactly the right size, because when you're pressing studs into cast iron, the last thing you want to do is have the hole a little bit too tight and you crack the cast iron. So I'll get all these holes machined up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Well, that's all the holes reamed out, so I'll take it off the milling machine now, get the studs and press all the studs in. Actually, we won't press the studs in. What I prefer to do with these cast iron discs, put the stud in the hole and pull it through with a nut. I've got a bit of hexagonal rod that's quite long with long threads in it, put a bit of oil in, get the rattle gun and pull them in with the rattle gun. It's a bit safer than trying to press them in. I've pulled the studs through in these in this rotor, so now we've got the hub and the rotor attached. You can see the studs going in from the back there, and over here in the vise I've got the whole lot already assembled up. Now, how I started was with a piece of 75 by 16 flat bar, and then I milled a bit out of it to get the alignment of the caliper just right over the rotor, so it ended up looking a bit like that. Then the next bit of prototyping got me to this stage. I milled these scallops out of it here, and then the final version looks like that. I haven't done the round scallops yet, but that's roughly what it looks like, and that's how it looks when it's all bolted up. So you can see we've got one set of bolt holes there, which goes through the original strut. Second set of bolt holes there hold the caliper on. It all fits up quite nicely. So now, take all this apart, put it on the car, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all bolted up onto the car. We've got the big rotors all bolted up, greased the bearings, put the split pins in, all that sort of thing. So that's that side of it done. Now I've got my brackets ready here, so I'll bolt the brackets up, I'll put the calipers on, and I'll show you what it looks like with the calipers on. I've bolted the caliper on. It all fits pretty nicely. It fits underneath the 17-inch wheel. It's very close to the front here, but it all does fit. And by the look of it, we're going to be able to use our Holden Commodore brake line, which was already on the car. Well, that's a bit of a bonus, so we can put a banjo bolt through the back there and use the original line. So now it's just a matter of put the pads in, get the brakes bled, and it's all done. Alright, just to recap, we've got our Toyota Hilux calipers. They're also some models of Toyota Land Cruiser. They are cast iron, so they're a bit on the heavy side, but they are nice four-spotters. The rotors are Mustang, around about 2000 Mustang, and the hubs are Holden with the rotor cut off the outside, so we're only utilising the hub because the hub runs the same wheel bearings as the Sigma. So Sigma and Holden wheel bearings exactly the same. Seals aren't, but the wheel bearings are, and all I've done is re-drill them to Ford pattern. So now we'll put the pads in, bleed the brakes, and that's it, she's all done. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.